Dr. Stephen Hobbs here with Doug Lawrence from the International Mentoring Community. It's wonderful to have you here at the All Things Mentoring Lounge. And our topic today is the 7 character skills that are important to a mentor who is interacting with a mentee in terms of building up the relationship and the arrangement of mentoring. And we want to explore these 7 topics, these 7 skills, because Doug and I think that they're really important. And I know Doug has the background and the deep practice around it. I certainly have practice. I tend to write about it more. Doug tends to practice it more. And therefore, welcome to the All Things Mentoring Lounge. It's great to be here. And Doug, why don't you just introduce yourself just a little bit more and what your role is with the International Mentoring Community? Because I think this is the first time people may have met you.
Okay, my name is Doug Lawrence, and I'm one of the co-founders of the International Mentoring Community, and I serve as the Director of Education and Outreach for the International Mentoring Community.
And in my support with Doug is that I'm the Director of Certification. So when you go through looking at the different kinds of levels of certificates, I'm the one who coordinates the audit or the verification, depending on the certification that you're working with. So you can learn more about that at internationalmentoringcommunity.com, and look forward to maybe hearing from you in the near future. But let's get into our topic here, Doug, because these 7 essential character skills are what we're going to go after. And to put this into a sort of a friendly approach to everyone is that there are what are called conditions and circumstances that are external to the mentor interacting with the mentee. We call that arrangement. But there's also a notion of the character and competence aspect, which is what the mentor would bring to it in terms of the relationship, the connection. And therefore, sharing these character skills from a mentor's point of view is important. But also, these are the kind of character skills that we would encourage, and I think Doug and I would totally agree on this, we would encourage that the mentor has the mentee take on as well in terms of their involvement in the mentoring arrangement, the mentoring connection. Because this involvement of these character skills is ways in which you evolve yourself. And I think as we get into these 7, you'll start to see this notion of, yes, I got to get involved, but this also opens up, evolves me, whether I'm a mentor or a mentee. Now, the show goes for about 21 minutes, and we'll be monitoring that accordingly. If it goes a little bit more, that's bonus for everyone. So the words that we're going over, the character skills we're going over today are confidence, commitment, confidentiality, presence, rapport, reciprocation, and tolerance. And these are core action outcomes also in terms of the certification, is that we're asking people to demonstrate these character skills, not just know about it, but to actually demonstrate it. That's why we want to unpack these 7 character skills with you today. And Doug and I are just going to go back and forth. I'm going to share a little bit about each one, and then Doug either has an example or he's going to add on to it, and we'll just take the show accordingly. So, Doug, you ready to go?
Ready to go.
All righty, here we go then. First one, confidence. This one is one about this notion of feeling of certainty from your inside out. It's that you have confidence about something. In the case of mentor, is that you have confidence in your mentoring. And what you're doing here is entering into this mentoring from a place of not having to negotiate who I am, because you have confidence in who you are as a mentor, And you're going to enter into this mentoring arrangement with the mentee, knowing that you have your lived experience and that you understand how to create an extraordinary experience called mentoring with the mentee. And this really gives you a sense that you have self assurance. Now, there's videos that we've shot before about the self concept, but this one is really about the self assurance that when you enter in, you are there and that you can do what it is that you need to do. Additions, Doug.
Well, certainly for me, when I think of the word confidence, I think of I go immediately to the certification process. And how does one demonstrate that they're confident in their knowledge and the practical application of that knowledge? And one of the things that I always try to encourage mentors who are looking at growing their practice, who are looking at wanting to become certified, and even setting those two aside, just wanting to be a better mentor and give a deeper, richer mentoring experience, is they need to document their lived experience so that they can go back and take a look at that, which is going to help validate or refortify their confidence level.
And you linked it to this notion of the certification. And I'll just pick up on that a little bit more, is because there's knowledge, skills, and attitude, which we write up as what are called action outcome statements. And it's what you are audited and verified against. But what's important here is to really come at this from a raw perspective, which is I'm ready, able, and willing to demonstrate, in this case, confidence. And that you will walk into it knowing, all right, and you have the skills and you have the attitude that you're going to do it. So let's take on the next one, which is commitment. And commitment is a really interesting one because it's linked with courage. And if you take a look at the word courage, it has core and age. And really, if you take the you out of the core, and core being heart, it's you from a heart perspective over time, is that you're going to be, have, and do the commitment that you've set up for yourself. And the commitment is made through you, for you, and it has a ripple effect when you're interacting with other people. So the commitment is not a sense, okay, I give it to Doug and that's my commitment. No, the commitment is through me in my interactions with Doug. And that's why I have to have this self-assurance, confidence that I can make the commitment and that I will keep the commitment. Sort of like I'm going to keep my promise. In this case, if I was working with Doug, I'm going to keep my promise with Doug. Because often what happens is that we slip into expectations and estimates. And let me give you an example. Is, well, I'll probably meet you on Thursday, maybe around 11 o'clock, and we can get together to do our mentoring session, versus we'll meet on Thursday at 11 o'clock and we'll get our mentoring session up and going. One has this sort of expectation estimate language, and the other one has this more definitive, it's a commitment, I will be there to be able to interact with you. And the commitments are a great way to see yourself moving forward and having the confidence in which to do it. Additions, Doug?
Just, just to sort of validate or confirm what you had just said, because I was actually thinking the same sort of thing, was commitment is, if I'm committed to the mentoring relationship, I'm going to be demonstrating at the same time confidence. So, and that's, that's significantly important. But commitment, I think we need to understand and appreciate that commitment is actually two-way. And it can be the mentee committing to the expectations of the mentoring relationship that both parties are going to end up fleshing out and saying, okay, we're like you had mentioned, we're going to be meeting on a Thursday at 1:30. That's going to be our standing time. And if you can't make it, as a courtesy, I'd ask that you contact or reach out to me. but it's committing to that deeper, richer mentoring experience in order to be able to, as both a mentor and a mentee.
And folks, you're probably noticing as we already talked about confidence, we're moving into commitment, but commitment is based on confidence, is that a lot of what we're talking about is sort of nested inside of the other ones. And that's why we wanted to unpack these 7 character skills for you so that you can appreciate them and see how they would unfold for you when you're mentoring. And to Doug's point, again, the encouragement of the mentee taking these into consideration as well in terms of their confidence and commitment to the mentoring arrangement. So let's go into the next one, which is confidentiality. Now you'll notice that confidentiality has a root of confidence, but what's interesting here from a confidentiality point of view is that you hold whatever is said in the mentoring arrangement as between the two of you. It's not something you go and write up in a report and give to someone else. It's not that you're going to go out and talk to someone else about what you talked about in that mentoring arrangement. So it's very much about what I'll call discretion, to hold in confidence. That's what confidentiality is about. And I learned this one from a deep practice point of view. There was 3 words: patience, flexibility, and discretion. I was working in Africa at the time, and I was doing lots of mentoring in my work, and I was learning things that I just could not talk to anyone about, and I had to keep it to myself. But one of the things that I realized, and Doug and I have talked about this many times, is that if in your conversations, the confidentiality may be broken, okay, on your determination if harm to self or harm to others. If the mentee was to mention something that would have a harm to themselves or harm to others, then you would have to break confidentiality and help to deal with that. But do it letting that mentee understand that this is taking place. And I know from a mental health point of view, which Doug is an area where he's exploring a lot of where mentoring is taking place, this one is a very important one and a commitment on his behalf to be able to have the confidence to deal with the confidentiality. So Doug, you want to add to that?
Just that, when you're working with somebody who may or may not be struggling with mental health or mental well-being, that if you want to get them to share their feelings, their experiences, and that, you have to be very plugged into the whole confidentiality piece, and you have to respect that and honor that as part of your mentoring process when you're working with them. And I try, like, I've had lots of examples where I may take kind of the experience and use that to help demonstrate someplace else. But at no time do I share, the exact details or the name or anything like that. And sometimes, you can, and I've done this, I've asked for permission to share a story. But I always make sure I have to respect the confidentiality of the individual, and no names obviously would be mentioned. But you're absolutely right. In the mental health space, from a mentoring perspective, confidentiality is crucial.
Yeah, and I would think also for in youth settings is that when you are interacting with a youth, that you pay very particular attention to confidentiality and you don't let something slip out, either advising that youth member and or the youth is giving you something and you wanting to pass it along. So I think what we're broadly saying is when you're mentoring, hold the confidentiality, be committed to that, and have the confidence to stand in demonstrating that. And I think that moves us into the notion of presence. And this is one where it's really easy sometimes, even when we're doing and using something like this live stream here, or doing Zoom meetings with people because of what's happening in the world, is to sort of move off, all right? Like your phone dingles or something like that, or the cat or dog moves all to the side, and you lose your presence in terms of not being present as you are in the mentoring arrangement, in this mentoring commitment. And this becomes particularly important for the mentee, is that they feel as though you are there with them. If you're going to have a conversation, a collaborative conversation, you can't be wandering off or wondering about something else. You have to be present there. A couple of times I've had to say to the mentee, just give me a minute here. I just need to think through this, because I'm one who is a visual learner. So I have this like whiteboard. And so I'll turn and I'll look, and you can probably see it in the screen. I'll turn and I look, and because I'm drawing something on my whiteboard, and they might go, where did the person go? So I have to sometimes explain, all right, that that's something that I have done. And it's sort of like I'm sometimes looking down at a piece of paper here, and that's okay. Again, is you just share with the person what's happening so that you can maintain this thing called presence. And Doug, you want to add anything to that one?
Well, the one that I was just thinking of is from the presence perspective, is that I'm looking at it from the mental health perspective. And sometimes when you're having or attempting to have a conversation with a mentee who's experiencing mental health challenges, you sometimes have to not say anything in order to get them to say something. And so during that time period, I need to stay focused on the person, watching for the signs, watching for the body language, all of those things, and making sure that I'm not about to jump into a conversation that I shouldn't be jumping into. And by what I'm getting at with that is they need their time to process and think about what they have said. They need their time to be able to, as I call it, vent or have a rant in order to sort of go through a clearing process of some sort. But I still have to be present. I still have to be physically there and paying attention to what's going on.
And I think what we also have to do is take into consideration this present is the circumstances, conditions in which you find yourself in the mentoring arrangement. Again, if you're having a conversation in a coffee shop is different than if you're having a conversation sitting on the front step of your home porch, to sitting in a small little meeting room at work. Each one of those evokes a different kind of presence. And I know I learned this one, is that if I'm going to mentor, I don't put a desk, right, my work desk, because it was at work, between myself and the mentee. I come out from behind the desk, and if there's a round table in my office or we go find somewhere, I do not put something in between. I learned that. That was sort of like, why aren't we having a conversation here? And I asked the person, well, there's a desk in front and all your stuff's piled in front of me. And I go, oh, yes, just the presence of where you are as well. So we jump into the next one?
We shall.
We're going into rapport. And rapport is about this notion of growing and building respect and trust. It's about leaning into the ethics, the values that you share. And two in particular are trust and respect. And we have to really pay attention to our presentation. Yes, we have our rapport, but it's our presentation. And then the conversation that we're having is then with respect and demonstrating the notion of trust to go with it. And we have an earlier video about the 7 ethical values. Again, I encourage you to check that out on the International Mentoring Community YouTube channel and learn about them in a deeper way. But you're doing this respect and trust and this notion of rapport so that the ideas and feelings of the mentee can come to the presence, can come to the table, can come to the conversation so that the person doesn't feel as though, oh, I'm not sure I want to share that one right now, is that if you have this rapport with one another, and Doug mentioned it earlier, it's two-way. This notion of two-way trusted relationship, that's what this mentoring is about, is that you both have the rapport to be able to share your feelings and the ideas that you want to offer up. Doug?
And sort of it comes back to, we have effective mentoring and we have effective communication, which is part of effective mentoring. And that's where I see from a rapport perspective is, as you've mentioned, the understanding of those feelings, but also being able to communicate that both ways. So from the mentor and from the mentee.
For sure. Which actually brings up the next one, the reciprocation. And I think a reciprocation is, it's, you might talk about the give and take, but really it's about the gift you're offering each other because of being human and being natural, being fully human and being natural. If you have this rapport and it's built on the notion of the presence and it's grown is sort of in an organic way, the reciprocation is really a gift. And it's so beautiful, this exchange, this mutual sharing that takes place. And to be able to really nurture it so that it flows, right? That's really important. And one of the things that I remember, again, a learning for me, is that if I notice the person starting to get anxious in our conversation, it probably means that they may not have the competence, right? But the challenges are high. Or I might notice a person is a little on the bored side and they sort of, okay, they're not necessarily fully, maybe they have a high competence, but the challenge of what we're talking about isn't up to where they thought it was going to be. So I'm paying attention to this anxious, this boredom storyline because I'm looking for the flow, the reciprocation of flow. And if you ever get a chance to check out the book Flow by Csikszentmihalyi, I certainly encourage you. It's an oldie, but it is a great book to understand what we're talking about in this mentoring, this two-way trusted relationship. Doug.
I think you've covered off the whole piece about reciprocation quite well, and I really don't have anything else to add to it.
Yeah, and it's the gift, folks. Doug has a book called The Gift of Mentoring, and again, I would encourage you to look that up on his website, talentc.ca, and you can get that gift of mentoring. He has another book coming out, and we'll certainly be talking about that. I'd actually like to do one of the shows on his upcoming book, and I think we'll do that. The next one we'll go into, because we're getting close to, we're going to have to close down our show for today, our Mentoring Lounge, which happens on the first and third Wednesdays of the month at 10 a.m. Mountain. Just put that plug in there. But the last one I want to bring to your attention is the notion of tolerance and being able to demonstrate tolerance, because tolerance is about the acceptance of the beliefs and the opinions and the practices of another. And we may not always agree with what the mentee is doing. So it could be that there's an ism has crept in, or they're talking about an ism that's getting in the way. And we have to particularly pay attention to our tolerance and how we interact with that. Because we may have to find, and I think Doug would agree with me, is maybe there isn't a fit between me and the mentee. Therefore, I may have to close off it because we don't actually have an acceptance, an agreement here around what it is that we're talking about. And I don't want to cause problems either for myself or for the mentee. And therefore, tolerance is also about the acceptance of what I just shared, but also understanding where the mentoring conversation, the mentoring arrangement, the mentoring connection, where is it leading? What's the fitness? What's it leading to? We have to really pay attention to that. From your perspective, Doug?
The tolerance piece is it's almost has an element of bias attached to it in that if I believe that I'm not going to be able to bring value, or that the mentee is not even willing to listen to what it is that I may be wanting to share, tell by storytelling or one of my lived experiences, to be able to say, this sounds, very close to what it is that you're experiencing today, and have them just kind of push back and go, no, that's not the way it is. I need to be able to say that they are in control of where they are going, and I'm along for the ride, so to speak, as their guide. And I have to be tolerant that I don't let my own bias get in the way of us going on that journey together.
Yeah, so when one enters into a mentoring arrangement, a mentoring connection, don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. Sometimes it just does not work, and do not attempt to force it. Really, it's got to be this sense of reciprocation, rapport, the flow that we're talking about. And sometimes it's better to get out than it is to keep going. I think that's where we're going with this story. So from this show, the Mentoring Lounge on December the 1st, is that we wanted to bring the 7 essential character skills to you when mentoring. And they are confidence, commitment, confidentiality, presence, rapport, reciprocation, and tolerance. So again, the video will be up on YouTube, on our YouTube channel at the International Mentoring Community. You can pick it up on Facebook at the International Mentoring Community group. We encourage you to join that group, where we update at least weekly. There's something that's going up there about mentoring, and we may actually add more now as time goes by. But again, we invite you back to our Mentoring Lounge on the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Come and join us, and you can certainly use the chat function. If you have a question, we'd be happy to deal with the question. And yeah, so let's take it from there. And Doug, I always ask you as we go out, is there anything really of importance you want to emphasize from today's show?
Not at all. I think we've done a good job of covering off the 7 points.
Okay, well, great. And always a pleasure to interact with you and have conversations with you, Doug. And let's just take it from there and just say goodbye to everyone, and take care, everyone. Take care.
Take care.